Hey everyone, welcome back to the KB Cabinet channel. My name is Rob. I realize that it's been a minute since I've made a video, and I have been very busy, but the biggest reason is my wife and I were moving, and so there was a period, quite a long period of time when I didn't have an area to set up a desk. So I got my computer set up, and I had a friend reach out to me the other day, and he was telling me he's got a small project that he's working on, and he's remodeling a kitchen, and he wants to get into the DIY cabinet making. And he has zero cabinet experience, so it's a new endeavor for him. So he was asking me a bunch of questions that I feel like would be his beginner questions coming from someone who has no experience. So I thought it'd be fun to make a video, and it's going to be geared towards people who don't really know. They're new to cabinets, so it's going to be kind of aimed at the beginner. We're going to build it from the ground up, standard kitchen height base cabinet. And we're going to build it in VCarve, and then we're going to go over how to size things. You got your size of your doors and drawer fronts and drawer boxes, and just how you go about doing all that. And in this video, we're going to specifically be looking at the full extent. It's a side-mounted full extension guide that goes on the drawer. There's different styles out there, but this is a kind of a common style that's out there. So in this video, we are going to focus on this style, and then I will be working on another video going over how to do the method for soft close drawer guides, because that can be a little trickier. So thanks for tuning in. I will stop rambling and let's get started building a cabinet. The cabinet that we're going to be building today is going to be an 18-inch wide cabinet, so that's 18 from outermost point. We're going to do a standard kitchen height of 34.5 and a standard kitchen depth of 24 inches deep. The materials that we're going to be using is going to be 1/2 inch thick plywood and 3/4 inch thick plywood. So disclaimer, before we get started, there's a lot of ways to build a cabinet. I'm going to show you how we at KBC build a cabinet. So the box that we're going to be building is going to be an 18-inch wide cabinet, so that's 18 from the two outermost points. We're going to do a standard kitchen height of 34.5 inches and then standard kitchen depth of 24 inches deep. Real quick disclaimer, I'm going to be showing you how we at KBC Cabinets build them. There's lots of other ways to build cabinets, but we're going to be going over how we do it. And just an FYI before you get started, this method does require dadoing into the face frame, and that's opposed to just attaching it right on the back. So if you don't have all the machines, there can be slight modifications that you guys might have to make, depending on your setup. First thing we're going to do is we're going to create a new file. I'm not going to go really into how to use VCarve. There's a lot of good videos on YouTube, but what I will point out is that I'm sizing this sheet as a 4x8 sheet of plywood, so that we want this white area to represent an entire sheet of plywood. My thickness is going to be 1/2 inch. We'll start with the 1/2 inch first. Machine bed, everything looks good, and I'm going to hit OK. So this is our sheet of plywood, and we'll just pick. We're going to start with the left and right sides of the cabinet. So under my vector, create vectors, I'm going to draw a rectangle, and I already have this filled out, but in the X we're going to go 34.5, and then the Y we're going to go 23.5 wide, because overall we want the cabinet 24 inches deep, and we're going to be dadoing it in to our face frame, so that's why we're going to go 1/2 inch. It's going to be dadoed in 1/2 inch. And that's going to be as opposed to if you have a 3/4 inch face frame and you attach the cabinet without a dado, then you might have to look at like 23 and a quarter or something, you know, because you got to add that 3/4 of the dado. So that's kind of the reasoning for that dimension there. So I'm going to hit create. We're going to designate this side of the square the bottom of the cabinet and this side the top. So to get things started, we're going to do the little notch, the toe notch down at the bottom that we call a toe kick. So first thing we'll do, we'll insert a vertical guide. And typically the toe kick height is going to be 3.5 inches tall. You might see there are some commercial buildings where the toe kick could be like 4.5 tall. So there are different sizes out there, but generally 3.5 is what we stick with for the height. So that's the height of the toe kick. We're going to come create a horizontal guide, and we are going to come up, we're just going to come up 3 inches and hit apply on here. So down here you can see this is where our toe notch is going to be. I'm going to turn snapping on, and we're going to come over here and grab a line, and we're going to draw a line here. And then we're going to get our scissor, our interactive trim, and we're going to cut that out. Alright, so that gives us our little toe notch. And we'll delete these guides for now so you can see. And so we're doing all this on that base layer, so all the outlines will be the same color. Next, we're going to take a look at the dado lines. So we're going to have a dado line here for the floor of the cabinet. And then we're actually, I'm not going to put a top on this bottom cabinet, but we will have a back rabbet, which is essentially another dado that goes along the back side for the back of the cabinet to fit in. So I'm going to come up here, I'm going to create a new layer, and I'm going to name this dado, and I'm going to change this to red. And that way, with this layer selected, everything we do is going to be in red. And I color code things generally based on which tool operation that I'm going to be using. So I look at the colors and I associate them with the tools. So I think it's a good habit to do if it's something that, if you do use VCarve a lot. Alright, so we're going to create a vertical guide, another one. And we're going to come up. In our new position, we're going to come up 4 1/4. Hit apply. Alright, so this is where our dado is going to start. So this line represents the bottommost point of the dado. So if you think the tooling is going to run on this side. So we are going to grab a line, turn snapping on, and we're going to come up to that intersection. We're going to connect that intersection. And if we delete this so we can take a look at it, so that is where our dado line is. So our floor is going to sit right on there. And I'm going to have, this dado is going to run the full length of the cabinet part. So we're going to add the back rabbet. So let's create a horizontal guide, and if we go, I'm going to be using a 1/2 inch back. We use 1/2 inches, a 1/2 inch thick material for our back. So that's what I'm going to be doing, but you can feel free to use a 1/4 inch thick, because I know there's a lot of people out there that still use 1/4 inch backs. So we established that 23.5 was our overall distance for the width. So I'm going to come in here and put new position 23, and that should put me with a 1/2 inch to the back. So we've already got snapping on, so we're going to draw our line. So there we go. So we have our dado lines, which in my case is going to be my 1/2 inch end mill. So from here we can add shelf holes. Alright, so the first thing that we want to do is we're going to come up here to layers, and I'm going to put a new layer. Let's call it shelf holes, and let's change this color to green. I've got it selected. So when it comes to shelf holes, there's a lot of ways that you can do it to hold a shelf, but what we're going to do is we're going to create a vertical guide, and we're going to start our shelf hole. We're going to go 10 3/4 up from the bottom, and that's going to be the center point of our first holes. And then we're going to do about 10 holes, and they're going to be 1 1/4 inches spaced. So now that we know that we're going to start, let's go ahead and put our horizontal guides. There's going to be 2 of them. So the first one, what we're going to do, so our cabinet is 23.5 inches deep, or our wall end, our base end is 23.5 inches deep. So we're going to come in 2.5 inches from the outermost point of the back. So that's going to be 21 inches. And that's where the back hole is going to be. And then the front hole is going to depend on, oh, that's not what we want. Let's delete that. We want another horizontal guide. It's going to depend on how deep you want the shelves to be. Again, they can be, you can make, some people want them deeper and shallower, but for this one we're going to do, it's going to be 7 inches shorter from the face frame to where once you open the doors from the face frame, it's going to be 7 inches back before the shelf starts. So on the new position, we're going to go 7 inches, and we're going to take a look at this a second. So we're going to have shelf holes up here and shelf holes up here. So what we're going to do is we're going to come down to parallel guides, and we're going to go relative to the guides that we just created. In fact, I lied to you. We're going to right click this bottom guide, because that's what we want the holes to be in relation to. So we're going to click relative to guide. We're going to go with 10. That's standard for us, but you can go as high as you want to go. But when it comes to the offset, the traditional spacing of shelf holes is going to be 1 1/4 inches, or in millimeters, I believe, someone can fact check me, but I believe it's 32 millimeters from center point to center point. So we're going to create new guides, and what that did is it's giving us all our intersections. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to turn on snapping, and I'm going to create a circle, or draw a circle vector. And in this radius, so this does not matter other than visual representation on it. So you can make it as big as you want to see it. So we're going to go create. Actually, we're not going to create anything. Hopefully that we create it. We're going to click to create. So we're going to leave that open. So we're going to zoom in, and each intersection, we're going to center that, and we're going to click. And make sure you see the little black square center up on the intersection. And we're just going to put a dot on each point. Alright, we are done, and now we've got our holes positioned where they need to be. The reason why that 1/4 inch, that 0.25 radius doesn't matter is that you want the physical diameter of a bit itself to drill the hole. So we're just using those as placement to tell the machine where to drill. And it's just better to have the actual size of a drill bit for the shelf pin size you're going to use. Punch that out. All right, so we're going to close that out. We're going to turn snapping on, and we're going to come up to view guidelines, and we're going to delete all the guides so we can see what we're doing. All right, that is our base end. Before, we're going to just copy this and mirror it to make the other side, but before I do that, I do want to kind of say one thing. When it comes to this dado and this back rabbet, like I said earlier, this is going to be a 1/2 inch, and this is going to be a 1/2 inch. I have a 1/2 inch end mill that I'm going to be using. If you're going to try to do this without, like on VCarve, on a CNC, without, let's say for some reason you don't have a 1/2 inch, you have like a 1/4 inch or something, then you're going to want to, the same thing that we did kind of with those drill holes, you're going to want to make, you're going to want to, let's see if we can, you're going to want to make a new line a 1/2 inch from that out. So in this case, if we go, what is it? So if we do a vertical line, and we were at 4 1/4, so and you're going to want to make a second line, and you're going to want to run that 1/4 inch bit on, you know, the inside of this line, and then come into the inside of that line. And that's how you can do it if you don't have a 1/2 inch end mill. Anyway, we're going to delete that, and so we're going to move on. And so we are going to select everything, and instead of going through the whole process of making it again, we are going to come up, and you can hit copy, and we're going to hit edit, paste, and we're going to just click this center point, and we're going to drag it up. Alright, now if we leave it like this, we're going to have 2 of the same. So if you're going to do multiple cabinets, you know, you can leave it like this. But we want to come over here to mirror selected objects, and we want to mirror this, flip it across the vertical, and there we go. So we have a left and a right end for our cabinet. So we've got the ends taken care of, so now we can move on to the floor, which is also out of the same 1/2 inch plywood. So we're just gonna build this floor right on here. But what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna move these 2 ends somewhere else on the board. And here is that pesky little hole. When I hit create, when I did the drill hole, it created a hole. So we're going to just delete that. But anyway, so the reason I moved that over is because I always like to start down here at the point. And whenever I create a new vector, it automatically indexes off of that left point. So let's go ahead and create the bottom for this cabinet. So we're going to come back up here to our layers, and we're going to reselect the base layer because I want it to be black. So now that we got that selected, we're going to come over to vectors. We're going to draw a rectangle again. Make sure the anchor point is at the bottom left. Zero out the X and Y. And in the size, in the X, we're going to have 23.5 because it's going to be the full depth of our wall ends that we made. And on the Y, we're going to put 16 and 15/16. So that is going to be, we've got an 18-inch wide cabinet, so our floor is going to be 16 and 15/16, which is 0.938 in decimals. We're going to hit create, and that is basically it. The only thing that we have to do here is we've got to add the notches on either side, so that way they'll go into the face frame dado. So we're going to create a horizontal guide, and this is going to, we're only going to come up 1/4 inch because that's how deep that notch dado is going to be. Close that out. We're going to put in a vertical guide, and we're going to come over from each side 1.5 inches. So 1.5 inches there. And then on the other vertical guide, I apologize, but I did not work this math out ahead of time. So what we're going to do is I'm going to get out my calculator. 16.938 minus 1.5, and that's going to give us 15.438. And we're going to hit apply. We're going to create another vertical guide, and we're going to come in 1.5 inches from the right side. So we're at 23.5, so we're going to go 22, hit apply. And the only thing we have left to do is going to be the same as what we did. Go snapping a line. For the toe kick on our cabinets, we are going to create a line on either side. Just like that. And then let's get our trim tool and we will trim. Whoops, way too far. Alright, I'm going to hit escape, so view, guidelines, delete all guides, and so there we have it. And the cool thing about doing it this way, so I use a 3/8 compression bit to cut it out, and if I follow the path, there's no need for me to radius these corners because the natural shape of the bit rounds it off. So it's just like running it through a regular router. So there is no need to go in there and try to make a radius path. Unless you're using some type of a square bit that I've never heard of. Alright, so that is the bottom. And I believe that the only other piece that we are going to be doing out of this material is the drawer box bottom itself. So I'm going to move this thing up, and I'm using just the arrows on my keyboard. Alright, so briefly, I'm going to go over the drawer box. So this is the easiest way you can make a drawer box. Obviously there's dovetail drawers, you know, it just depends how fancy you want to get. This is going to be just a simple box, 1/2 inch bottom, 3/4 inch plywoods for the sides, and then the back and the sub front with edge banding, a wooden edge tape on top. So it is a basic box. So it's something that anybody can build. With aside from maybe some of you might have a hard time accessing an edge bander, but you can always do that with glue and by hand. So the drawer box bottom, we're going to come back up here to vector. Everything's zeroed out. And we are going to make this on the width. It's going to be 16 and 15/16, so 16.938. And on the height, actually, what did I do? I looked at that. It's going to be 13. 13 and 15/16. And then on right here, it's going to be 20 and 15/16. Alright, so that should give us the shape of our box. But what I'm going to do is I actually typed those in backwards. So I'm going to hit R for rotate. And I'm going to rotate this 90 degrees. I'm going to hit close because I want it to run. I'm going to move this here. I'm going to zero that out. So there we go. I'm going to zero out that just so it's on the board. Just because the grain of the wood is running that way, and so I want the length of the grain to run, you know, the length of the drawer box bottom. So that's it for the 1/2 inch. So the only thing, you know, now what you want to do is just kind of optimize this, move it around to where it's using the least amount of waste. But I'm not something you can do, so I won't waste any time doing that. So next we're going to move on to the 3/4 inch material, which is going to be all the sides for the drawer box, and then the shelves, and then after that we're going to take a look at the doors. So now that I got it optimized, one thing I did do is I added this little waste cut, and this is when it's all done. It's gonna go through and cut that clean, so I got that piece to work with. So we're gonna go over here to sheets and see how we have sheet 1. Let's go ahead and rename this, and we're going to call this 0.5, and that's for the 1/2 inch material. So we're going to create an add new sheet, and we're going to name this 0.75. Alright, now if I go back to drawings, if you can see that it added me another sheet that's grayed out. So we're going to double click this sheet. And under toolpaths, we're going to go into the material setup, and we want this thickness to be 0.75. And we're going to go ahead and do that now, so that way I don't forget, even though it's in the tool settings and not in the drawing settings. But alright, so where do we want to start with the 3/4 inch? So since the last thing we did was the drawer box bottom, let's go ahead and do the sides of the drawer box. So terminology is you've got your drawer sides, you've got your sub front. If you are putting it, if you have a sub front that goes behind a drawer front, otherwise if you're just attaching it straight to the drawer front, you don't need that, but we build ours with a sub front, and then you have the back. So let's go to our draw a rectangle. And in the X, so let's do both of the sides. So these sides in the Y are going to be 21 inches long. And we're going to make these 4 1/4. So this is going to be like a shelf that's typical of like the top drawer, I mean a shelf, the drawer of the top drawer of a cabinet if you go around the kitchen, because obviously if you look you'll see sometimes there's multiple drawers in the cabinets, and some are bigger than the others, but this is what we do for like the top cabinet drawers. So we're going to create that, and man, I did it again. So we want to actually put this at 21 and this at 4 1/4, and there we go, and that's both of them. So what we're going to do here is we're going to close that out, and on this one we're going to grab it, we're going to hit R to rotate, do a 90-degree rotate, and there we go. I'm going to hit M to move, just zero it out, and then hit close. We'll move this down. Alright, so these are my left and right sides. Let's move them up. So now we're going to do the back. So let's go back to the rectangle, and on the back, so 21 was our width this time, but the drawer box back we want 12 and 9/16, so that's going to be 5 6 2 5, and we're going to hit create. 5 6 2 5, so hit create. Alright, there we go. Alright, so that's going to give us our back, the drawer box back, so let's go ahead and move that up. And so now we just have the sub front, which is going to be the exact same dimensions, so we can just either make it again or hit copy. You can hit paste, arrow it down, and this is these are the sides of our drawer box, and then the bottom is right here. Alright, so now while we're drawing small stuff, let's go ahead and talk about the toe kick. The toe kick is something I normally do by hand, but let's go ahead and do it in here so that way we can see the measurements. So the front toe, or the toe kick, is going to be 3.5 tall, because that was the size that we did our toe kick. And then the width is going to be inside to inside on the wall, on the body part. So we're going to go 16.5625 or 16 9/16. Boom. So that is going to be the toe kick. So we're just going to put it up here. I'm not really worrying too much about how to excuse me, how to like get it all optimized out on the board. So forgive me if you're watching this and you're like, man, that's a lot of waste there. Alright, so the last thing is going to be the shelf. So we're going to come up here to rectangle. We're going to put, so in the X it's going to be 17 3/4, and in the Y we're going to put 17 3/8, which is 0.375, and hit create. And that is going to be our shelf. So out of 3/4 inch material, this is everything that we need. So obviously if we were only doing one sheet of wood, we'd hopefully have a scrap piece we can get these out of. But now that we've got everything done on our 3/4 inch sheet of plywood, we're going to move on to the doors. And the doors, I'm going to be showing you how to do the doors out of a machine grade MDF shaker style with the bits. And we're going to design it out here And then that's opposed to making a 5-piece door out of like maple or whatever it is you're going to use. So I won't really be going over the sizes, how to, the individual sizes for a 5-piece door, but the overall width of the doors will still apply. So you can use that to size your doors however you choose to build them. So let's get the MDF set up. All right, so we're going to go back to sheets. We're going to add a new, this one we'll just put MDF. We can maybe put 0.75 for good measure. Okay, so we'll start with the drawer front. This cabinet, and the way that we do our cabinets, the top drawer opening is usually 5.5 inches. So we're going to be going off of that. So 5.5 inch opening height. And on an 18-inch wide cabinet, we've got 1.5 inches for one side of the face frame, 1.5 inches for the other. So that's -3 inches. So 18 minus 3, that's going to give us a 15-inch opening. So our opening size is 5.5 by 15. All I'm going to do is add 1 inch to each of those. So 5.5 by 15, we're going to do 6.5 by 16 for the drawer front. Alright, so the MDF, there is no grain. It doesn't really matter how we want to do this. So 6.5 by 16. And we can do that. Alright, so this is going to be the outer edges of this drawer front. And we're going to do this shaker style. So the thickness on shaker style, so this is going to be the top of the drawer front. This is the bottom, the right and left. So you got a pocket on the inside, and you've got this border all the way around it that looks like a 5-piece. The way that we're going to do this one is going to be 1.5 inch thickness on the top and bottom, and then 2.25 on the sides. So the quickest way we're going to do this is by making 4 guidelines. We could do it just using a square, but or drawing a rectangle vector. But we're going to do 2 guidelines or 4 guidelines, and we're going to connect them with the line tool. All right, so we're going to start from the 2 horizontals going up and down, and then we're going to come in. So first, we're going to come up 2.25, just like that. All right, we're going to create another horizontal, and we're going to come down from the top 2.25. From 16, so go, so we're going to go 13.75, hit apply. Alright, looking good. So now we're going to do our next vertical line. We want 1.5 inch thickness. Hit apply. And we'll do another vertical line at 5 inches. There we go. We're going to turn snapping on. We're going to get our line tool. Let's just draw away. Whoops. Alright. We're going to close out of this. Turn snapping off. Delete our guides. Alright, there we go. We have, at least this is how we do the shaker style drawer front. Alright, so now we need a door to go with it. So let's just move this up. Alright, so we've got the drawer front. Oh, it's way too high. Let's keep it on the MDF. Alright, so for the door, so the 16, the width is going to be good because the width of the drawer box opening and the width of the door opening is going to be the same. So instead of 6.5, our bottom opening, we've got 3.5 for the toe kick, we've got 5.5 for the top opening. So we're going to be left with 21.5 for the center opening, the door opening. So we're going to go 22.5. All right. So in this instance, we're going to go on the doors. We're going to go 2.25 all the way around. So it should be pretty easy. So we're going to go back to our vertical guides. We'll do vertical first. We'll go 2.25. Hit apply. Alright, we're going to do another vertical. And we're going to put this one at 20.25. Hit apply. Okay, insert horizontal, so we'll go 2.25. Alright. And this one, we'll go 13.75. Alright, and then again, we are going to connect the lines. Alright, so view. Alright, so let me move this down a little so this is exactly what we want. You got a drawer front. We've got a drawer front and we've got our door. Alright. Alright, so now we've got all our parts. Just to recap, we've got our left, right, we've got our bottom. This is our drawer bottom. Here is all our drawer parts. We've got our toe kick, we've got our shelf that's going to go in between the two, and then we have got our doors. So essentially that's all the components of this cabinet. So from here we're going to go ahead and get into the tool assignment. At least how I do it, it's going to be very different depending on other people's tools, how your library is set up and the tools you're using, but I will go ahead and go through what I do for the tool process. So we're going to take a look at the body parts first, but before we end up in the toolpath side of VCarve, there's a couple things I want to do. The first one, I see if you click these, they're individually pink. I'm going to select them all, and I'm going to group all the drill holes together, and we're going to go right here to group, and that just means that I can assign one tool operation to all of those as opposed to doing them all one by one. It's kind of hard to do them with the dadoes, but we will group the black outlines together and that should work. We potentially might run into a problem, but we're going to go ahead and try it and see. And so they turn pink when you click them. Alright, that should be good there. We're also going to do the same thing on here. I'm going to select everything. We're going to group them. And over here we will group the outlines together. And then let's try, I think we might be able to do, the insides together. We'll see. We'll do that and we'll start for now. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to go over to the tool side. And like I said earlier, this is entirely dependent on your tool library. Your tools are probably going to be very different from me. If you're watching this, you know, with the mindset that you're going to use VCarve. So right here is the tool library, the tool database. So I'm not going to get into all that. So the first thing we're going to do is or the method, let's say the method when it comes to assigning toolpaths, I usually do the same operations first and then the same operations last. The operation that you always want to do last if you're doing a CNC, and it's probably obvious to some of you who are around CNCs, the final cutout is always going to be last. So all the operations in between, you know, it doesn't really matter the order that you do them, but I like to do the order, so the drill bits first, and then the dados, back rabbets, and then we're going to do the final cutout. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to click all the drill holes and see we've got them all selected. We're going to come over here to drilling toolpath. Okay, our cut depth, normally it's a 1/4 inch, but we're going to go 3/8 deep, just a little more to be a little more in depth, so that way sometimes the little pins, if you do a 1/4 inch, they don't get enough meat to go all the way inside. So we'll just call it drill, and we're going to hit calculate. So what it's going to do is it's going to take us to a 3D view of what's going on. Can't see anything now, but I've got, this is that drill operation, and we're going to preview visible toolpath, and you'll see that it puts down the tooling. So the reason I said that the circles that we put in here don't matter is because we're going to be using a 5mm drill bit, which it's something like, it's going to look like this. My CNC has a drill bank. So I have a set of half that spin the right, half that spins left. So in my main CAD, it'll do all of those really fast. When you're using VCarve and you're using like a tabletop or a desktop CNC, or even, you know, a little bigger CNC, but you can't afford to spend a lot of money on a CAD, you buy this tooling, you buy this bit. You want the right hand spinning bit, so the black one. And I just put it in its own little tool because I cannot control the drill head in VCarve Pro. VCarve Pro cannot control a CNC drill head. So when I do it, it just goes one at a time, just boop, 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 boop. And that's how you can get around not being able to control a drill head. The second thing I do, the second pass I do is usually the dados. Alright, so if we close out right here, I'm going to go to Profile Toolpath. We're going to cut a depth of 0.25 inches, so 1/4 inch into our 1/2 inch material. Got one too many points there. And I'm going to select in my tool, and this is my tool library, so yours will probably be different, but I'm going to do an end mill, tool number 3. These are some feeds and speeds. I'm going to hit select. And so this is the passes that it's going to do. And so that's going to do 2 passes. So it's going to take an 1/8 off, and then it's going to go down to a 1/4, which is what we want. The machine vectors, this is a little bit of trial and error because I cannot remember. We're going to either be using the outside or inside. And the only way to do it, we're just going to go fast. We're going to put dado 1. We're going to start with the outside because remember, this is the bottommost point of that dado. So we're going to hit calculate. I'm going to come to my 2D view. This purple line represents the dado, or the line we drew, and this represents the tool traveling path. And so it needs to be, it's on the correct side. It needs to be on the top side of that dado. So what that means is when I close this out and I select this line, I do the same thing. I'm going to have to go to the inside because we mirrored it. It's kind of a weird thing about VCarve. You just got to, sometimes you got to pick one, calculate it, look at it. If it's the wrong side, you flip it over on the other side. So we're going to hit calculate. And there we have it. So we're both on the same side. So we're going to do the same with the back rabbit. So we're going to select it, close back out. I'm just going to leave it on inside. So we'll put dado, put rabbit 1. And you can do, if this is a program you're setting up, you can do left and right or whatever. I'm just doing this pretty fast so that way you can see what I do. So you can see that is on the incorrect side. So we're going to double click it. We're going to select the outside, hit calculate. Go back, there we go, we have it on the correct side. So that means when we select this rabbet, we can change that to inside. We can put rabbet _2. We can hit calculate, and we are good. We're on the correct side. So if we go to 3D view, preview all toolpaths, so you can kind of see what we're starting to get at. Alright, so the only thing that's left to do on this one is we should be able to just select one of the outer rims. We're going to go back to the profile toolpath, and this time we want a 1/2 inch because we want to cut all the way through. I have a spoil board on mine, so it goes all the way through down to a spoil board. On this one, we're going to use a 3/8 compression bit, and I don't have a picture of it, but if some of you out there are curious, it comes from LMT Tools. It's a coated carbide, and it's a compression. It's a compression bit, meaning it's designed to go all the way through and cut, and it kind of cuts up and down at the same time. So we're going to click outside. This will do it in one pass, and I always name them cut through passes because I know that it's going to cut all the way through. For me, this is very critical where my zeroing is, whether it's the machine bed or the material. So we're going to hit calculate. We're going to go to 2D view. We need to make sure that that this gray line is on the outside of every pink line. That looks good. That looks good. Sometimes you might, if it's this close to the edge of the plywood, maybe you want to bump it in a little bit. But anyway, we're going to leave it for now. We're going to go to view, preview all toolpaths. Alright, we're going to double click the waste areas, and there we go. So this is what it's going to cut out when I process it to my CNC. Got the drill holes. Let's see if I can get that. We've got our 1/4 inch deep, 1/2 inch wide back rabbets, as well as our 1/2 inch dado lines. These notches are going to fit, so this part will come flush. It'll come flush with here, and then that little 1/4 inch meat will go into the face frame, so that looks good. Alright, we are good there, so let's come over to our 3/4 inch material, and this is going to be super simple. We're going to select it all, and this is 3/4 inch, so make sure that that is set to the correct material thickness that you're using. Profile the toolpath. We want 1/2 inch. We're going to use our 3/8 compression. We're going to be on the outside of the lines. So we'll put cut through. And the reason that I write, I name things based, I used to do a little bit of coding, and so I keep the same name convention over and over again, and I recommend that whatever you decide in any program that you do, however you decide to name them, do the same things over and over. We're going to preview all tools because it makes a big difference. And already I can see that there is a problem. We're not going all the way through. And we want to be 0.75, not 0.5. We forgot to change that. So let's just preview all toolpaths, and there we go. Alright, so we got our 4 sides. While we're on this topic, I realized I kind of forgot to go over the drawer box sizing. If you're using a good bit of full extension guides that are the side mount guides, as well as those white drawer guides that you might see on the cheaper cabinets, whether at Lowe's or, if my opening size on my drawer box opening where the frame goes, it's 15 inches, we want our drawer boxes to be 1 inch smaller, so the overall width of the drawer box is going to be 14 inches, and that's going to allow the clearances on both sides for the tracks to run. It's pretty easy to do these side mounted guides, but when I get into the clearances for the soft close drawer boxes, it's going to get a little bit more complicated, but just know that for this one you can generally get away with subtracting 1 inch from your opening to make your overall box width. Alright, so we've got that out of the way. Alright, so now we're going to go to our MDF. Okay, so first thing what I'm going to do, so we've got the outside. We're going to go ahead and we're going to move these in the different order of operation, but I'm just going to go ahead and do this operation, the cut through, because it's already set up. So we have, if we go to preview all toolpaths, we've got the cutout. Okay, so this is going to be the correct sizes that we want. So we're going to come back to 2D view, make sure that we're on the outside. Alright, so now what we want to do is select the innermost boxes, and we're going to go to this right. We were at the profile toolpath, we're going to go to the pocket. Okay, so here's where we'll just call this pocket underscore pass. Okay, so this is where it is going to be dependent on what tools you have in your library, but I'm going to show you, this is what I do. Okay, so in reality, I have I believe it's 1 1/4 inches, and I'll put a picture up. It's a diamond tip tooling, and it's pretty much the best, one of the best hogging tools for to do the main hogging of the MDF, to get it mostly cleared out. And if you guys, if there's some of you out there that want to know where I get it from, I got a great person I work with. I can get you that information. So in reality, so this 1 1/4 inch diamond tool is going to do all my hogging. Then I've got a 1/4 inch bit that's going to kind of go inside and clean it up, and then an 1/8 inch bit is going to carve out the corners, so it's going to give it nice sharp corners. But in this video, the way on this computer, it's not my office computer, but the way it's set up is we're going to use a 1/2 inch end mill to do the main hogging. The 1/4 inch is going to do round the inside smoothing, and the 1/8 inch is going to go in the corners. But the reason I wanted to point that out is because if you know, some of you who really want to do this and do the MDF, you're not going to use a 1/2 inch end mill to do your main hogging, but it's just the way that this computer is set up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go calculate, and we're going to reset all toolpaths. I didn't mean to do that. We're going to, let's say, okay, reset preview. I'm going to drag this cut through pass to the bottom, because we want that to be the last thing that we do. So if I select toolpaths, preview all toolpaths, we want the hogging and the cleaning of the corners to be done first, and then the final cutout. But so this is how you can, okay, you can see what the door is going to look like. And this is standard shaker. I do have tooling that allows me to do different little profiles on the inside. So if that's something that you guys want to see, I can show you how to do something like that in VCarve. But this is something that very popular. A lot of people like it. It's simple to do. So that's kind of what I wanted to focus on in this video. So just to recap, and well, side note, when you go to save toolpaths in VCarve, if you do multiple sheets, you've never done it before, when you go to, so I'm gonna, Onthrough is the CNC I use, you've got right here, this is the sheets that we do. And so I would export the 1/2 inch, I'd run it, I export the 1/4 inch plywood and I'd run it, and then the MDF, and then I would run it. So it'd be 3 separate programs. So I've got a program for each sheet. I'm using a machine that has automatic tool changing capabilities. So if you do not, then you're going to want to save each toolpath out as an individual program and run them individually. But anyway, I don't want to make this video too much longer, so I hope that this answers some questions out there, for especially for people who are new and are looking to get into cabinetry. And I know I'm using VCarve and computer programs, and I tried to make this video so that way, even if you don't have access to a CNC or to programs like this, that the dimensions are there so you can still do it by hand. But if anything was not clear, let me know. I will do my best to answer any questions you might have, and I appreciate you guys watching, and have a good night or a good day or a good morning, whatever it is, and I'll see you in the next video.